We need to discuss the BS that I just experienced with the end of episode 5 of An Archdemon's Dilemma. This isn't the first time that I've been bamboozled by a quote-unquote 20-minute episode that definitely was 5 minutes and you can't convince me otherwise. But it's a little more infuriating than usual. I'm the type of guy who actually likes cliffhangers. I like cliffhangers at the end of an anime season. It keeps me engaged, wanting to see where it's gonna go. But there's something about how good the show was getting these past couple of episodes. Really being like, okay, yeah, they're twisting your expectations, they're progressing Neffy and Zagan just amazing, and I'm like, okay, that's, in hindsight, Barbeos being a scumbag. I mean, I thought he was, but him really pulling the rug from under our feet, that's a fun twist. Okay, our boy comes in, I'm expecting a little bit of hands to be thrown, I'm thinking we got at least 5 minutes left, and then the credits start playing. And I'm like, okay, sure, it's a badass entrance. And yeah, all things considered, is it a good stopping point for an episode? Yes. But with how fast this episode felt, Brandon no longer has episodes to watch. I had the luxury that 4 episodes were released. I watched the first couple, and then yesterday I watched episode 3, today I watched episode 4, and I thought to myself after watching episode 4, I'm really happy that I have episode 5. It just released. Episode 5 was even worse of a stopping. If you had to wait a week between 4 and 5, man, here's the thing about it. You knew they weren't gonna stay separated, but it probably did feel a little bit like salt, like, damn, man, we gotta wait 7 more days to see, them coming back together. And then episode 5 says, hey, you thought that was gonna be a cliffhanger? Yeah, here's everything that happened. And I'm like, this show is too good to the point that weekly experiences are actually infuriating. It's rare I get this way, but that's how you know this show's something special. I'm loving this one. Full live reactions over on my Patreon. If you want to see my full length of thoughts to any of these wonderful episodes, it's over there if you're interested. I did my first impressions last week of the first couple of episodes. I'm officially caught up, and boy golly is this show good. By episode 2, we had an MC try to remove the slave collar, which rarely happens in these shows. They just justify it as, no, please trust me, they're actually in love with their master. It's not something like a gun pointed to their head. By episode 4, he actually frees her and sends her on his way. Now, obviously, the dialogue wasn't there, and it was a little more nasty than it needed to be, but from his point of view, it makes sense. I mean, if he's an archdemon now, people are going to target her, anyone close to him will be targeted. It makes sense, it's just, unfortunately, it was too brutal to the point that Neffy thought, once again, life is a lie. I was getting comfy and I'm just gonna get killed. And then we get the 3 best friends I never expected, between this knight and the shop clerk there and Neffy. What I figured was gonna happen was that those two, because they both recognize that Zagan's a nice guy, in episode 3 or whatever, I think it was episode 3, when she goes to basically try to, say, hey, fake your own death so no one else comes after you. She recognized he was a good guy. And the shop clerk also recognized he was a good guy. So I figured they're going to have a drunken night together. They'll say, actually, Neffy, he actually is really nice. He probably didn't mean it. And instead, they went way more interesting. They assumed that what she was saying was very hurtful. Damn, I can't believe he did that. And she was able to piece together, actually, he's been doing a lot of things that were probably actually for my sake. And having a character as emotionally intelligent as Neffy is refreshing, because usually when you have moments like, oh, the reason he did these types of things, she just assumes it was one way, but she actually was able to piece it together once she calmed down and she was no longer in emotional distress. And then Zagan pops up and basically kidnaps everyone. At first, I actually thought it was him. I thought he was trying to protect her. And then when I realized that clearly it wasn't him, I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's clearly going to be one of the 12, right? They mention after he becomes the archdemon that, it's very possible that people try to take him out because then you get more power, you get more authority. But we also know that apparently our boy, no one could kill him. There's something about him that's so special that even as a kid, which we got hints at in previous episodes, that as soon as he was about to be attacked, he was able to redirect everything and just master things from looking. And he seems like a natural born prodigy to the point that even if he's not technically the strongest or anything special in the grand scheme of things, he will be someday, hence his role as the 13th member. And the idea that it was actually Barbados was interesting because if you watched my video last week, I mentioned how, he's kind of a weirdo. I mean, it makes sense that Zagan doesn't have, a lot of social skills when this is clearly his only friend. And it's funny because, Neffy literally talks about how, it looks like from her point of view that he views him as a friend, even though he's like, nah, he's not a friend, he's just an annoyance. The idea that rather than going the route of, oh, he's the student of the guy you killed, rather than it being a revenge tale. It's like, bro, I would have killed him too. I'm just pissed off that all the money, all the things that I was going to take from you, you wasted on this elf. Like, that was his entire, and I'm like, I didn't see that coming, because from what I gather in this world, sorcerers are generally scumbags or seen as such, so I just assumed Barbatos was a representation of that mentality. And it was interesting because I personally didn't see it coming. In hindsight, it makes total sense, him sending all these types of, tipping off the church, this, that, and the third, why he constantly is breaking down barriers, which I thought was just like a gimmick, like, hey, like, why do you keep destroying my ship, man? I have to keep putting it back up. I mean, no wonder if he's trying to get the guy killed. It was just a very unexpected thing, and I think between the almost slice of life reunion and kind of drunken, emotional conversations between the girls to them, everything that happened in the kidnapping scene afterwards, it didn't feel like 20 minutes. Like, this was I legitimately feel like this felt like 5 minutes. And the previous episodes, yeah, they feel like a full-length episode. They fly by, sure, but it's like, there was something about episode 5. Maybe it was because I was coming off of episode 4, which also kind of just abruptly ends, and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to watch the next one. For me, it was literally 2 seconds later. But there was something about this latest episode that was some BS, man. It's good BS, don't get it mistaken. I'd rather a show be so good to the point that feels like I'm barely watching anything. It's like, oh, I just blinked and you're over? What is this nonsense? But this is some of the most intense feeling I've had where I'm like, there's no freaking way. The development between the central two is fantastic. They both come from 2 very dark places, which you already kind of knew from the beginning of the show, but they kind of cemented and confirm it over episode 3, and then you get more taste in episodes 4 and stuff. But there's something about them and how they're both building such a genuine relationship, and the fact that by episode 2 he tried to take the slave collar off, by episode 4 he did take the slave collar off, you actually believe Neffy's love for him and her infatuation doesn't come from, when she says master and saying that I'm his, I'm this and that, you don't feel like it's possessive because it has to be, it's because she's choosing it, which makes it a night and day difference to a lot of these fantasy shows that use slavery, where you're like, it's a good show, but goddamn, I really do have to roll my eyes, because in actuality, is this actually real love, or is it because of the slave pack, you know what I mean? And this actually feels genuine, which you rarely get to see. I mean, in 5 short episodes, I feel like I've gone through an entire course worth of development and characterization that you normally don't get to see, and if you do, it takes 12 or 13 episodes. It doesn't feel rushed, mind you, it just feels like we're getting through so many things and they're deviating away from expectations. While I predicted, the fact that his demand would be the possession so that he could unlock her slave collar, the whole idea that, he would end up coming to rescue her after certain things, but it's like the way they deviate away from the actual finer details really separates this from your run-of-the-mill generic fantasy show to something that's actually truly special. But let me know what you thought down below of any of these episodes, really. But episode 5 was some BS with that cliffhanger, but I'm loving it, but it's BS. Let me know your feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell. And like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on my Patreon. And hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got Pokemon 222, 888, Sharon, Crowley AC, Derek Nickel, Little Big Trouble, Trap Senpai, and Andre. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.